So, it's Christmas now, and really we should be, well, we did the first Advent calendar on the programme earlier, and I will now allow myself to be very Christmassy and start to do some of my shopping. I'll be getting the tree out in a week or two and all that sort of stuff. However, with me in the studio is Nick Freeman, better known, I would imagine, to you as Mr. Loophole, and I'm afraid that Nick really is saying leave the mistletoe at home this Christmas party season, because there are allegations that could be levelled against you of a sexual nature if you do something at the party that you think's a bit of a snog and the other individual thinks differently. Nick, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I'm just heartbroken that we've got to discuss this. It's Christmas.
It's sad, but it's serious.
So, right, what's prompted you to give this warning?
Well, I think people are very cavalier at Christmas. They go to Christmas parties, they consume an amount of alcohol, and there's obviously someone in the office they fancy, things get carried away, and then it all goes wrong, and it can have very serious consequences. And I just thought it was worth making people aware of the potential problems. And basically the simple message is this: if somebody is totally inebriated, they can never give consent. So you are leaving yourself wide open and vulnerable for that person the next day, the following day, a week later, to turn around and say, I didn't consent. You're going to be arrested and you will be charged with a serious offence. That you have to make sure that the person who you are with chooses freely to have sex with you, whether it's a kiss, whether it's something more than that. And if they are inebriated, you're playing Russian roulette, you're taking a huge chance. And people just, because of the alcohol, because it anaesthetises good sense, they think, oh, it doesn't matter, it's Christmas, we're having a nice time. And they don't make absolutely sure that that person consents. And the law now is very clear. If you're inebriated, you can never consent. And in fact, there is an evidential burden against the defendant. So you've got a whole host of very serious problems.
You're almost guilty.
Yeah, absolutely.
To prove innocent.
There's almost you have to raise. There's not quite a reverse burden, but you're putting yourself in a situation where the law now states if you're totally incapacitated so that you can't form consent, then there's no consent, and you are assumed to know that. And it's very hard for you to get around it. And I think, as I say, the reason I'm highlighting this is because people just don't realise. They assume we can all get drunk, we can all have good fun, and there will be no problems. And you have to bear in mind the vast majority of sexual assaults relate now to consent. Happily, they don't relate to people. They're really serious. They're all serious, but the sort of things that we tend to associate with rape.
Snoggy, gropey stuff would be my description.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's light-hearted, but of course that now is very serious in our very politically correct age that we live.
If I look back to all those Christmas parties, and I've been going to Christmas parties now for 52 years, probably.
You're looking good for it, mate.
Since I left school. Now, there are times when I've had a snog, I probably know more than that, actually, but I've been inebriated as well as the other individual. And there are times when I've instigated the snog, and the next day the snoggee has actually been really sort of, are we going out with one another? And I thought, why did I do that snog? So is there no mitigating factor when both parties are inebriated? Because the snogger might not really...
No, because alcohol doesn't afford you a defence. These are not offences of specific intent. They're legally crimes of basic intent. So the fact that you're drunk doesn't assist you at all. And as I say, it causes you a huge problem if the person... They might not be drunk, they might be under the influence of drugs. They might be comatose through drugs, and can they form the consent? Do they have the capacity to freely consent? If they don't go near them. So my advice is very simple. If anyone is very heavily under the influence of alcohol or drugs, whatever you think, don't have sex with them. And that way you'll be safe.
In fact, don't snog them.
Yeah, because that's a sexual assault.
Yeah.
That's a sexual assault. And, you're penetrating with your tongue. It's serious. I know you think it isn't, but I'm not saying you personally, one doesn't think it's serious because we're cavalier and, we've had a bit to drink ourselves and, we think, and, if they change their mind, they might lead you on. You might be led on. But at the time that act takes place, if you're not sure that they were consenting and had the capacity to consent, you've got a problem.
Why has culture changed so much? I mean, you've been, although I know you look as if you've not been around a long time. You have actually been around a long time. So you'll have seen culture change. What's happened in society that we wouldn't have even been having this discussion 10, 15 years ago?
Well, to put it into context, if I can just... In 1956, when the Sensual Effects came out, there was actually no definition of consent, and it was actually only defined in 2003. So that puts down very clearly what it is, and we do live in a politically correct society, and everyone wants to be very safe and secure, and everyone is entitled to say no at whatever stage, and I suppose that's right. So now the law accommodates that, and now for fairly recently we have this evidential burden on a defendant that if he actually engages in sexual activity with somebody who is incapacitated, he actually has to raise. It's for him to raise. It's like a reverse of what you'd expect in the criminal law. And we don't want to put ourselves in that situation. Times have changed. We call it progress. Whether it's better or worse, I don't know. And of course, we live in an age of the compensation culture, Mike. And I think it's important to bear in mind. You may have read in the papers today, one person has had to just pay out first payment of £25,000 for sexting. So we're living in an age where people are very savvy to, look, you've done this, I want some dosh, I'm therefore going to the authorities, and you have to be alive to that.
I am very sensible, and I'm lucky I'm very, very happily married. I'm not going to be in the snogging position. However, you do frighten me to death, because we keep using, you and I, at the start of every sentence, if he...
Yeah, no, well, of course,
if he. We don't say if she. We just say if he.
Well, I'm saying,
but it's mostly men.
It can be men and men, women and women, transgenders, the whole party. It applies to one party and another. Who is the complainant? Who is the defendant? It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is.
Let me then throw another scenario at you. So you have a couple, both inebriated, quite a lot.
Yeah.
They have sexual congress. The next day, let's say the female fails that, maybe I shouldn't have done that, and makes a complaint. The male genuinely doesn't really remember what happened at all. What happens in a situation? How can you defend yourself? Because it does happen. You can forget stuff. I know people have a drink, and they do. I can't remember anything since 6 o'clock yesterday night.
Well, as I say, he has an evidential burden on him, and if he's so inebriated he can't remember, he's not going to be able to discharge that burden, and that's why he's got such a huge problem. He's got to show, one, that he believed that she consented, and secondly, that belief was reasonable. Now, if he says, I can't remember anything, how is he going to ever be able to establish that she consented, he thought she consented, and that was a reasonable belief? He's not going to, and that's why I say he's got a huge problem. And that's why we all need to be aware, whatever your sex, if you're going to have sex with someone and they are inebriated, you are playing Russian roulette, taking a huge risk. Don't do it.
So leave the mistletoe at home.
With or without mistletoe.
I had to ask you this question. I mean, we've got you in the studio to discuss this, but you are very famous, infamous in some quarters. Do you ever, and we don't want any names, any factual, but do you ever take a client on, get them off whatever trouble they're in, but think, I wish I hadn't have done that, or that's not really, I've got the result, but really I shouldn't have got the result?
No, I don't think that, because I obviously operate within the law and with lawyers, and we compartmentalise any emotional influence. But what I do is, after I've ensured the acquittal of someone, particularly for an offence which shouldn't happen, like drink driving or a serious high speed or something worse than that, I do talk to them and I do explain how lucky, how fortunate, don't put themselves in that situation again. So if you like, I do give them a bit of a moral lecture. Now, I shouldn't do that, but I do, because that makes me feel better.
I was going to say, and do you think they take notice of you?
Yeah, I do.
Excellent.
I do. I hope so. I like to think so, in any case, Mike.
Nick Freeman, great having you in. Thank you for dropping in to see us. Have a great Christmas, by the way.
And to you. Thanks for having me.
I won't be snogging underneath the mistletoe.